A few years ago I had a situation which on the surface was laughable, but it provided a profound understanding for me of just how real that time orientation is for a person in generational poverty. Mrs. Doobie called me on a Friday morning in July. It was extremely hot. She had just returned from the grocery store and was frantic because she had many groceries, much of her produce, meat and dairy, and no refrigeration. And she wanted help in procuring a refrigerator. And being the social worker that I am, I began probing immediately. And my first question was, do you own your home or do you rent? We rent. Well, do you know in New Hampshire there are statutes that landlords are bound by, and one of them is to provide a working refrigeration unit. Has your landlord provided a refrigerator? Long pause in the conversation. So I moved on. I wanted to see if the client had the resources perhaps to purchase a used refrigerator. So I asked, what do you have for income? Oh, said Mrs. Doobie, we have no income in our family right now. My husband was the only one that works, and he was just arrested. I'm sorry to hear that. Do you know how long he'll be incarcerated? No, he was just arrested this morning. May I ask what he was arrested for? The kids were hungry, were desperate for food. A neighbor liked our refrigerator and we sold it to them. My husband was arrested for selling the refrigerator. There was that much immediacy to her situation. They sold the refrigerator for food that they were not able to refrigerate. Now, was Mrs. Doobie stupid? No. Not by any stretch of the imagination. She was working on instincts that were programmed by her life experiences, and her life experience focused on survival. Now, we can look at many other dimensions of culture. One is worldview. Now, people in middle class have a worldview that tends to be national in nature. Now, when you tune into the evening news, because it's geared towards middle class people, the vast majority of the news that you're going to hear is going to be of a national nature. There may be 5 to 10 minutes in the broadcast of international news. People in wealth do tend to have more of a worldview. And in this electronic age, that's shifting tremendously and very quickly. And more people in middle class are taking on that worldview. But people in poverty have a worldview that sometimes is limited by their experience. In urban areas, we would say the hood. People's life experience is focused in the hood. In the North Country, for folks in generational poverty, their experience is focused in the town and what they know about the town. When we look at education, and here's where some of the problems came in Ruby's research. People in middle class saw education as crucial for climbing the success ladder and for making money. People in generational poverty, although they valued education, revered it somewhat as an abstract and not as a reality. It was perceived as, we know this is a good thing, but we're not quite sure why. And so education became hindered because in that survival mode, there was no link to what was beyond the immediate and the present. Many years ago, when I was working with school desegregation groups. We attempted to forge critical links between careers and academic achievement. Now, people in middle class make those connections very naturally. People in poverty don't. And I remember taking a group of students to the local county courthouse, where they were exposed to an array of different cultures. And we walked into the judge's chamber, and we had one 14-year-old girl who gasped at the beauty of the architecture in the room and blurted out, "Wouldn't you love to clean up in here?" And we chuckle, our heart might ache at that statement, but it was based on her cultural perspective. Seeing that as something that was attainable was not a concept that even entered her mind. And I remember taking her and sitting her in the judge's chair, and she was sort of drowned in it. And I said, "What about being the judge?" And she could not even verbally respond to that. Interestingly enough, 22 years later, she's a paralegal in a law firm, doing tremendous based on her life experience. So when we look at those hidden rules, we need to understand that people in poverty think in a different manner that is in fact based on survival, not achievement. This has some real implications when we're working. One is to not be judgmental. We also need to recognize that many people want to leave poverty, but they don't know how. And there's two primary tools. And again, let me underscore that our basic focus is not to move people from poverty to middle class, unless that's an express need. And when that is an express need, there are ways that we can help people make that transition. And the two primary tools are relationships and education. Nobody leaves poverty because it's something they see as not achievable. I want to be a middle class. It's not even an understanding of what middle class is. However, relationships sometimes create that imperative that now I'm seeing something that's different than what I live. Now, at the moment, it seems a little bit better for me. How do I get there? That relationship is going to be the key to moving people beyond poverty. Because people aren't going to respond to data. They're going to respond to a relationship. And they'll change based on that relationship. The reasons people finally discern wanting to leave poverty is that it's too painful to stay. They have a particular vision or goal. They have a key relationship, or they have a special talent or skill. And to assist people in that journey, there's some things that we need to do if we really want to be a bridge out of poverty for someone who wants that. And again, bear in mind that that's not our primary goal. But if somebody expresses that they'd like to leave poverty, then we do have an obligation to provide that support. So what are some of the things that we can do? We can furnish role models and emotional support. Again, those relationships become crucial. Now, we have a program called BLESS. It's an acronym that stands for Bridging Lives, Enhancing Self-Sufficiency. Now, it's for people who are highly motivated to move from entitlement to self-sufficiency. And we ask the volunteers and the participants in the program to make a 3-year commitment, because we know that journey's not a 6-week program. And in the program we have as many as 5 mentors for a single family. Now, because those role models and those supports need to be there. Now, mentoring is extremely important. It's not teaching by doing, it's teaching by showing. Now, we need to help people understand that if they're going to break the cycle of poverty, that's going to require a certain degree of discipline. It's going to involve making specific choices, and it's going to mean being willing to endure the consequences of those choices. Now, we need to then teach what's needed for the job, and in the process we need to foster resiliency. Again, that dance that sometimes is 3 steps forward and 1 back, or sometimes even 3 steps backwards. We need to teach people that they can bounce back again, and that one fall isn't going to destroy them. Now, simultaneously, we have to be working with organizations, agencies, political and economic structures to improve agency policies and internal processes to make it easier for people to engage in those transitions. And last but not least, we have to foster interagency collaboration. Now, if we're trying to help folks change a mindset that's been established through generations of life experience, it's not going to be one person that's going to make that change. It's going to be a whole community. So when we're looking at poverty, again, just to recap, now it's important to understand the hidden rules that exist among class. And it's extremely important to recognize that poverty is driven by survival. And when we recognize that, we tend not to be critical of decisions. We tend to be in a state of awe at the capacity of an individual to survive and be resilient. Now, remember that definition of cultural effectiveness that we looked at the beginning of this presentation. To be culturally effective does not mean that you must understand everything there is to know about another culture. What it does mean is to view with humility and deep respect that there's more than one way of looking at the world. Now, we welcome you to the North Country and are excited about the journey that you're taking. Take good care.